Hamas have just released the names of the next 3 Israeli hostages to be freed as part of the Gaza ceasefire deal with Israel. They are Ofer, Kalderon, Siegel and Yarden, Bibas. The 3 men are expected to be released on Saturday in what would be the 4th hostage prisoner swap of the ceasefire. Let's go live to our correspondent Joe Inwood, who is in Jerusalem. So, Joe, the breaking news, we do now have these 3 names that we were expecting.
Yeah, Nikki, as you say, Siegel, Yarden, Bibas and Ofer, Kalderon. The name which people may recognise first, I guess, is Yarden Bibas. The abduction of Mr Bibas and his wife, Shiri, and their children, Ariel and Kfir, from near Oz was one of the defining images of the start of this conflict of October the 7th. These 2 tiny red-headed children being taken away in their mother's arms on a motorbike. And ever since then, there's been real concern around the fate specifically of Shiri and the 2 children. Hamas released a video in November 2023 which they said showed Yarden being told of the death of the rest of his family, they said, in an Israeli airstrike. And ever since then there's been grave concern. The Israeli government say they knew of the fate but have never commented. And I think the fact that Yarden is being released and the rest of the family is not, it is being seen as all but confirming that he is the only one to have survived. Ofer Kalderon, he was 53 when he was taken from the same kibbutz as Yarden and the rest of the Bibases. He's now 54. His children have already been released. They were taken as well, but were released in the first hostage deal back in November 2023. It is worth saying he did lose 2 family members on October the 7th. And then the final person who's being released, or will be released, is Siegel. Now, he is a dual Israeli-American citizen taken from Kfir. His wife was also amongst those released in November 2023. And so if everything goes as expected or as hoped tomorrow, he too will be free.
And Joe, we saw the chaotic scenes yesterday when 2 Israeli hostages, including the first male hostage, and those 5 Thai nationals were handed over in Khan Yunis. And the Israeli government certainly concerned about those scenes and don't want a repeat of it.
Yeah, I think all sides want to avoid a repeat of that. As you say, they were chaotic scenes as 7 of the 8 people released yesterday were handed over to the International Committee of the Red Cross. And they too have expressed concern around the safety of these procedures. It is worth saying that they don't organise them, but they do facilitate them once they're taking place. And the Israelis specifically have said they want to avoid that sort of scene happening again, of huge crowds, of crushes, they say, endangering the lives of their citizens. And as a consequence of what happened yesterday, there was actually a delay to the release of more than 100 Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. And so I think all sides are going to be hoping that this, when it continues, can be done in a more orderly and more safe fashion.
And I mentioned those hostages who were released yesterday. They are now in hospital. I was just seeing a statement from Gadi Moses' family saying his return is a miracle. Of course, there have been some emotional reuniting going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the scenes that we saw, the photos we saw of Agam Berger when she was reunited with 4 of her other colleagues, 4 other soldiers who were taken from the Nahal base. They were spotters who were amongst the first to highlight the dangers they saw of what was taking place inside Gaza. This was before the attacks. And they were also one of the first bases to be overrun. And when they were all taken together, held together, and now she was the last to be released, and we saw a photo of them being reunited. And also Arbel Yehud, she was a 29-year-old, and she was, along with Gadi Moses, she was one of those 2 who was released in the very chaotic scenes. And we've seen very emotional photos of her being reunited with her family as well.
Joe Inwood live in Jerusalem with the latest on those hostage names being released by Hamas of the 3 Israelis who are going to be released tomorrow. Thank you very much. Let's go to the live pictures from Hostages Square in Tel Aviv. Of course, is where people gather, and they have been regularly gathering since the October the 7th attacks. And just in the last half an hour that we've seen more people arrive there, and I would imagine as word filters out in Israel of the names of the 3 hostages who are going to be released tomorrow as part of the hostage and ceasefire deal, we will see people holding up their pictures and remembering them. And if you've seen over the months, people always gathering in Hostages Square. We saw it yesterday when we had those latest releases, people watching the live feeds. You can see the 482 days and 5 hours, 36 minutes and 36 seconds, the clock reminding people how long the hostages have been held in Gaza since those attacks on October the 7th. But we have had the breaking news in the last half an hour or so of those 3 men that are expected to be released on Saturday.